Sometimes, right, sometimes you will have this feeling, nothing unusual has happened, but your heart is stuffy, it's like nothing is wrong, but everything bothers you. I used to be stuck in this kind of mood for a long time. That was a nameless anxiety that made me feel very heavy and tired all over. Today, I want to tell you about how I slowly walked out of that period. When I was young, I had a good job with good pay. My life was pretty much set, but one day I woke up and found myself not wanting to get out of bed. I didn't know what it was, so I just forced myself to go to work. At first, my boss didn't say anything because I still did my job well, but after a while, he started to talk to me. "You don't seem to be in good shape lately." When I heard those words, I didn't know how to reply. I knew that something was wrong with me, but I couldn't tell exactly what it was, so I could only keep saying sorry. Then I started to think about quitting my job. I thought maybe another company would give me a fresh start, but before I even finished my resignation letter, I started to worry again. I was afraid of losing my job security. I was afraid of having no income. I was also afraid of disappointing my parents. At that moment, I didn't know where the problem was. All I felt was a deep sense of anxiety. One night, I couldn't sleep again. Suddenly I realized that I was actually worried about everything. I was worried that I couldn't find a better job after I quit. I was worried that I wasn't good enough for the job I was doing. And most of all, I was worried about myself. What if I really wasn't cut out for this? I kept asking myself, but there was no answer. I stayed up all night thinking about it and tossed and turned until dawn. The next day at work, I started to feel guilty. I felt guilty that I couldn't do my job well. I felt guilty that I couldn't give my best to the company. I felt guilty that I was being too selfish. At that moment, I hated myself. I hated myself for being so useless, so incompetent, so incapable of dealing with my own problems. That night I couldn't sleep again. But this time I didn't want to think about it anymore. I gave myself an injection and went to sleep. The next morning I woke up and felt a little better. I told myself, okay, let's take it one step at a time. First, let's try to do our current job well. Let's see how things go. Then I took a deep breath and tried to relax. It was still difficult to focus on my work, but at least I no longer blamed myself. I started to spend more time with my family and friends. They were very supportive and understanding. They never asked me why I suddenly quit my job or why I didn't have any plans. They just listened to me and gave me a shoulder to lean on. That made me feel warm and grateful. One day, when I was chatting with my friend, I talked about my anxiety. To my surprise, she said, "Me too." She told me that she had been struggling with the same problem for a long time. She didn't know what was wrong with her. She just felt anxious and depressed all the time. She had seen a psychologist who told her that she had an anxiety disorder. She was prescribed medication, but she didn't want to rely on it, so she tried to overcome it on her own. She told me that she had learned a lot from her experience and shared some of her insights with me. The first thing she told me was that anxiety is not a bad thing, it's just a sign that something in our lives needs to be changed. We can ignore it, but it won't go away. The second thing she told me was that I shouldn't feel guilty about my anxiety. It's not my fault, it's just my body's reaction to stress. The third thing she told me was that I should learn to accept myself. I am who I am. I can't change myself overnight. I have to accept the fact that I'm not perfect. Her words gave me a lot of comfort. I felt like I wasn't alone in this world. There were other people who had the same problem as me. They understood how I felt, and they knew how hard it was for me. I started to believe that I could overcome this problem. I started to believe that I could live a happy and fulfilling life again. I started to go for walks in the park every day. I started to read books about psychology and self-help. I started to journal and meditate. I started to practice gratitude and positive thinking. I started to do things that I liked and stopped doing things that I didn't like. I started to surround myself with positive people and avoid negative people. I started to take care of my body and mind. I exercise regularly. ate healthy food and slept enough. It wasn't easy, but I was getting better. My anxiety didn't disappear completely, but it didn't bother me anymore. I could feel its presence, but I didn't let it control me. I could still have bad days, but I knew how to deal with them. I could still feel sad, but I knew how to cheer myself up. I could still feel lonely, but I knew how to reach out for help. One day, I was reading a book in the park when I saw a girl sitting on a bench crying. I walked up to her and asked if she was okay. She shook her head and said, "No, I'm just feeling down today." I sat down next to her and said, "It's okay, me too." And we talked for hours about our feelings, our problems and our dreams. By the end of the day, we were both smiling. I realized that sharing your feelings with someone else is the best way to relieve anxiety. It doesn't matter if you don't know the person well. Just talking about how you feel can make you feel lighter. It doesn't matter if you don't get any advice or solution. Just knowing that someone cares about you can make you feel better. It doesn't matter if you don't feel better right away. Just keep trying. This is what I learned from my experience with anxiety. This is what I want to share with you today. If you are struggling with anxiety, please know that you are not alone. I know how hard it is, but I also know how you can overcome it. You just need to believe in yourself, believe in the process, and believe in the light at the end of the tunnel. Anxiety is just a chapter in your story, not your whole story. There is still so much more to come, so don't give up, keep going. You are stronger than you think, you are braver than you feel, and you are more loved than you can imagine. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you liked it, please subscribe. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments section below. Thank you for watching, see you next time.